I'll boil it down to like one sentence. The ones who want to work hard and identify their own candidates and deeply, intimately understand the specific talent pool for that search themselves. The reason why this is so key is like you're doing the sourcing, you're doing the search, you're looking at candidates really quickly, but now you intimately understand that talent pool. So now you can actually be a true talent advisor.
Initiating becoming a hiring machine sequence in 3, 2, 1.
Hey everyone, it's Sam Keenley, and welcome to Becoming a Hiring Machine. This is the show dedicated to fixing recruitment by going beyond saying what needs to change and instead teaches you how to make that change. Today, we've got a great mic drop episode ahead of us, but before we get into that, I just want to tell you a little bit about the show. Essentially, we have shows within the show here. Some days we have interviews with industry thought leaders and others who are shaking up the space. Other days we cover trending topics. Stop by every Tuesday for a Tactical Tuesday episode where we go deep on how to do something that's going to help you drive better results in your day-to-day. Some days we open up for Q&A. Listeners can drop in questions that they'd like to hear us take on, so send those to us at podcast@loxo.co. And occasionally you'll hear a mic drop episode from Matt where he shares something that he's been thinking about within the recruitment space and wants you to know. All right, so for today's mic drop episode, recruiting has changed. Everyone knows that. It's really easy to say, but what does that really mean when you start to unpack it? How has it changed? What specifically has changed? Is the change good or bad? What do recruiters need to be doing to adapt with this change? So today, Matt's joining us to share one of his biggest insights yet. So grab a pen and paper. You're going to want to take notes for this one. So Matt, you are coining the phrase, the year of the full stack recruiter. Tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah. So today we're going to get into why 2024 will be about the rise of the full stack recruiter. The two core concepts that are driving that are the specialization of labor and technological disruption. But before I geek out and bore everybody with those, I want to help our listeners understand why this is inevitable and what you can do to get ahead in your careers. The change in the recruitment space for most of those listeners that have been in the space, it's been very gradual. And technology, the reason why is technology, it really wasn't good enough. Wasn't sophisticated enough to be like disruptive, right? So why change? Early adopters are always open to progression and change. If something is superior to the old way, but the mass market is not. And so the mass market, for those of you who are familiar with the product adoption lifecycle curve, you have like innovators, and then you have early adopters, and then you have mass market and late adopters, right? Mass market is most people, and they're not going to change unless it's like radically better or, everyone in their, peers are talking about it. So that's starting to happen in the recruitment space. And the reason why it hasn't happened at this point, we've kind of talked about it, but it's really just human behavior, tendencies. People don't change. You want to stay in your comfort zone. So from a software perspective, when you start to build something that's new and it's going to change things, it has to be 10x better. It has to be radically better than things that came before it, right? Again, go back to your comfort zone and bubble. And so in other words, what happens is when two recruiters or the same recruiter are looking at how they've always been doing things, and then they hear about something new and they want to try it and they compare it, apples to apples, and they have this mind-blowing epiphany like, oh my God, I can't believe I've been doing things the old way. That's what forces change. And that's where we're at now with recruiting tech, recruiting software in 2024. And the result of that is going to be disruptive, not software, but to the recruiting business models and to the specific job tasks that recruiters themselves are doing.
Yeah, so that's exciting stuff. Like, I think it makes complete sense in theory, but like you were just saying, change, people don't like change. And they don't always operate on logic alone. This is going to make me do better. This is going to make our organization do better. So consistency, I know what I'm using, familiarity, I've used this product for forever. Sometimes that can rank higher for them than something that's better, more efficient, even though they know that change might make them 10x better. So like, what does this mean? How is this going to change the day-to-day job for recruiters to help them overcome some of that?
And that's the big question that all recruiters are asking themselves, right? A lot of recruiters are struggling just in general with the market and their career path, but you shouldn't be nervous. And if you're passionate about the growth mindset and recruitment, this is a really good thing. But to help, what happens, and we talk about this a lot internally, you go from like Web 1.0, just original version of SaaS. And it was exciting because you had this old clunky software, which used to be like desktop driven software. And for a lot of listeners on here, they don't even know what that is, right? They don't know what I'm talking about, that's how it used to be done, like TurboTax, right? You install it to your computer. So SaaS was like, wait a second, it gets better. And, they update it in real time on the internet. I can log in. But nothing's changed in recruiting software since the early 2000s. That's when you had recruiters would have your legacy ATS, and then job boards popped up. So you'd have job boards and then LinkedIn, and that's all you needed, right? You could be a good recruiter, and so for the next 2 decades, it's been 20 years. It's been a quarter of a century. Recruiting didn't need to change because the only way to increase performance was through specialization of labor. Technology wasn't good enough. The only way to get faster and better was business models or specialized labor. And so what happens, even tools started to kind of specialize around that specialization of labor. But the other way would be you can work harder, right? Dial for dollar, or what do they call it? Smile for dial for dollars or
Mm-hmm.
whatever. But it's like work harder, more hours a day, just pound the phone, send more emails. Um, and if you want to be at the top of the leaderboard, it was just you had to be a workhorse, right? And it's like, wait a second. And so what happened as a result of that is the recruiting model and the way things were done for the past couple of decades kind of like bifurcated a little bit into buckets. So here's the buckets. Sourcing. Okay, how do you recruit? You get a new job order, you have to source, right? We'll kind of talk a bit more about that. And then recruiting jobs to be done are very different than sourcing, right? And we all know that. And then if you have account management or if the hiring manager, those relationships, and even that bifurcates a bit into like the business development BD side, right? How do you even get the job orders in the first place? If you're on the corporate enterprise TA, you clearly don't have BD functions, but the first part of the sourcing actually gets much broader and it encompasses like recruitment marketing, brand marketing, employee referrals, campus recruitment, et cetera, right? So those all just fall under the umbrella of sourcing. But that was the old way. And now let's talk about the new way. So the new way is not labor, it's not the old model, it's technology. And it's now available and it's revolutionary. And the talent intelligence platform, and more importantly, in my opinion, the workflow, the talent intelligence platform like workflow, it's going to change everything. And so much so, in fact, the traditional ATS and traditional way of recruiting will not exist in 5 years. And even just to back that up, even if an organization doesn't yet have a talent intelligence platform, they're already doing this manually. They're doing a variation of it. And we know because we talk to thousands and thousands of recruiting organizations and teams a year, and they duct tape. They duct tape the pieces together. They duct tape them together with half a dozen bolt-on tools, and they're trying to mirror and do exactly what the talent intelligence platform does in one simple unified workflow. Anecdotally, another way to help illustrate this for people, you have entire companies now that are coining the phrase outbound recruiting, right? And outbound recruiting is now a thing. That's awesome. That's amazing. And they simplified a whole approach to recruitment that people didn't realize. And it's just passive, right? Headhunters and exec search are like, what do you mean? This is how we've always done it. But it's not post and pray, right? But you need tools to do that effectively, right? So once you break it down and you have a list of candidates, and how do you reach out to them and create leverage or scale to your workflows? It's becoming more sophisticated. In the outbound recruitment category alone, that's blown up. There's lots of really good products in the market. Some have raised $100+ million, and it's awesome. It's an important piece, sourcing. So that is really where the top of the funnel. It used to take up the most time and energy in recruitment, and so what happened was the very best recruiting organizations or even independent headhunters, they could only make so many placements per year. And so as their time, like it would max out no matter how hard they worked, right? Sometimes you'll hear these $1 million billers and people are like, how are they doing this? But that's really where the vast majority of the time took. So what the smarter ones would do, even larger, especially the large agencies and search firms and RPO, is they realized to scale, they had to specialize labor. And so you get entry-level employees, you do the candidate name generation or sourcing or analysts if you're at the high end of retained search, or companies build offshore sourcing teams, right? And that's what everyone else is, hey, I don't want to do this work. It's a lot of work. God, takes too much time. I need cheaper labor. You do it. So I get the job order, hand it off. And pretty soon people are doing it offshore. The quality goes down. We all get it. That worked in the old way. The new way, the talent intelligence platform, it's going to destroy the old way of doing things. And the reason why is quality. The quality of outcomes is so much better to how traditional recruiting organizations have been outsourcing the sourcing process. Because what I said, you try to pass the buck. Hey, I'm not going to do it. It's too much work. Quality goes down. And yeah, costs go down, but the quality ultimately suffers. And that's where we're at.
Yeah, I love this, and it's so easy to understand it as you put it in this like this old way, new way, because you can really, when you do start to think about that way and puts it in those buckets, it's like, oh wow, that makes a lot of sense. That is exactly what I'm doing. So let's take it a step further and really start to break this down for our audience so they can understand like where is this heading and how specifically can they get ahead.
Yeah, so I try to simplify it into some, like, let's just say there's two primary reasons for everybody. So the technology alone and the talent intelligence platform, it consolidates, it compresses, consolidates the steps. So less steps, less process, and simplify something for me. So like cut out time, right, and make it more efficient. So it doesn't take weeks and weeks and weeks to source and build talent pipelines, right? And the goal is like, okay, I have a job order, JD. If you really think about it, like, what's the goal? And the perfect goal is like, I need to find all possible options, not the first random person I come across and pitch them over the fence to my hiring manager. Like, take the time. What if you're missing? So find all possible options, right? That's the best sourcers, the talent search firms, your market mapping. It can happen in less than a day. Yes, less than a day. Really good recruiter can use the right tech, leverage your own brain and combine it with data and AI, and then within a day, easily. And so the more searches they're working on with a talent intelligence platform, because all the data is in one system, all the workflows, the more their own activities and time compound, because the more you do it, obviously you're looking at different searches, you're speeding up that workflow. It's not just that one day, right? It's over time, so that compounds. But the main thing is you don't have to specialize in labor anymore, which is what we're talking about. The only way to create leverage, again, was specialize in labor or disruptive tech. Specializing in labor is gone. And so you can get all the work done by a single recruiter. The second reason, really, so that means the real value drivers of recruiting, where the very best, most elite recruiters will excel in 2024, is going to be identifying the very best possible candidates as fast as possible and then figuring out how to engage them, obviously, as quickly as possible. But in my opinion, this is where the superstar future recruiters who win are going to be world class at. So how quickly can you identify the best people? How quickly can you engage them? And not spray and pray. We're not talking about just pull a list. So if you're recruiting a role, pull a list by title and spray and pray and blast away. We're not talking about that. It's with precision and relevance and the right message at the right time. It's quality, right? How can you do really awesome, amazing quality at world class level, but do it efficiently and quickly? Um, this is going to be the full stack recruiter. Sure, recruitment will always be a relationship driven business. So I know a lot of people are saying, well, wait a second, like, recruiting is always, of course it is, but where the money is made and where the best recruiters and where we're going to see the full stack recruiter, instead of specializing labor and delegating all the sourcing, this is where we're going to see it.
Yeah, this is getting exciting as you talk about like quality is going to go up, reduces that specialization in labor. You're really going to start to see some recruiters who are just studs at what they do start to take off head and shoulders above others. So we've talked about old way, new way. We've talked about how this is going to start to break down theoretically. Let's get a little bit more practical with it. Like, do you have a story or something that you can tell me? Like, how does this actually look in the real world?
Yeah, great question. So maybe let's break this into two camps. Like, ask the audience, what camp do you find yourself in? So let's start with the old way, right? So uh, are you in this camp still, or have you graduated out of it? So the old camp, um, you or your firm or your team, your hiring manager, you get a new job order, right? Hey, we got a new job order. We're excited. All right. Now you read it. Everyone knows what it is, and panic sets in. It's like, oh crap, who do I know who meets these criteria? And everyone's done this. Who do I know? Or your boss says, hey, everyone, who do you know who's the superstar A player, right? Everyone who's been in the space for a long time, you have your Rolodex, but you can't search your ATS because your legacy ATS is bad at search. So you can't find anybody. So now what, right? So now you're like, okay, well, now I actually have to put in a ton of work. And that means I have to spend the next 4 to 8 weeks, depends on how methodical you want to be, to try to find candidates that are going to match, right? And so, like, you're going to be working on different roles, but for weeks and weeks. So you sit down, you finally aren't context switching and getting interrupted, and you find one candidate looks decent, right? Looks pretty, like, yeah, pretty good. And so now you're going to do everything you possibly can to get them on the phone, to get them to respond, or they did, and then you're going to try to close them, pitch them on the client, the role, and then you're going to. The other flip side is, once they agree, you're going to pray that the client likes them to hire them, pray that they make the offer, and you're going to just keep doing that until the hiring manager or client makes the offer to hire, right? and that takes so much effort and so much energy and work, and that's how it's been done before. So what would happen is that recruiters have been doing this for a while and been in the game. They said, wait a second, I'm going to find an entry level associate, or I'm going to go outsource this to my team in, enter country that you want to have an outsourced team for cheap labor so you can make some good margins. They're going to do all the name generation, all the sourcing. Hey, I want you to go through, find all these people with these titles by company, by industry, and then send me back that list. And then I'm going to poke through it on my own, and I'm going to say, okay, well, here's the best options, and let's see if we can pitch them and get them into an interview, and then initial conversations. Right? This is ridiculously slow. So the recruiters who are the most successful and make the most money, make the most placements, will move to first principles and the rise of the full stack recruiter.
I like this. This is going to be a much better way to scale. That outsourcing, just it's delegating the work, but that same amount of time is taking place. You might get a tiny bit more work done, but the reality of it is not too much. So now we're getting into a question I already know is going to come up. You're talking about the rise of the full stack recruiter. They're doing their own sourcing. They're doing their own outreach. They're moving everything along from a BD perspective, client management perspective. I already know there's going to be people saying like, Matt, this sounds like a 360 desk recruiter. Like, explain some of the differences here.
Yeah, exactly. And that's been around forever. So you have split desk, you have 360 desk, full desk. And again, most of this is on the agency search side, right? But for the old guard and the 360 model, that means that you can do both sides. You can handle getting new job orders and handling the client, as well as sourcing, doing research, recruiting. You're just doing all of the different job tasks. That's not going away, right? There's different models, but the concept of a full stack recruiter, what we're talking about, speaks more about the ability to utilize technology to eliminate the specialization of labor with one single recruiter. So I'll boil it down to like one sentence. The ones who want to work hard and identify their own candidates and deeply, intimately understand the specific talent pool for that search themselves. So the reason why this is so key is like you're doing the sourcing, you're doing the search, you're looking at candidates really quickly, but now you intimately understand that talent pool. So now you can actually be a true talent advisor. You're not passing the buck. You're not then taking some candidates that were pitched over from your search and research team because you have no clue really. You didn't understand the market deeply, and then you're just kind of advising your client or hiring manager, kind of going through the motions. And the difference is when you're a first principle thinker and learner and you understand it, you can say with confidence, you can say without a shadow of a doubt, I've looked at the whole market. I understand them, the pros, the cons, the nuances, the talent pool. And I promise these three candidates are the best of the best. They're the best mutual matches for your culture, for your scorecard, for your criteria. And they're excited. And then there's alignment in what you're offering. And that's powerful. That's true talent advisory. And if you review them and you agree, then let's get them in for an interview, right? And that's really where we're going. That's a full stack recruiter who first principle thinking and has done it kind of end to end. But you can do it quickly and do it 80% faster and more efficiently.
Yeah, that's unbelievable. And I already know those recruiters are going to just see unbelievable results. I mean, think about it. What hiring manager wouldn't want to work with someone like that, where it's an expert, not just someone who's working on a contingency basis, throwing people over as quickly as they can, but like they know the market. They're doing both passive outreach and everything else to really bring in that top candidate. Like, it's a no-brainer for anyone, especially in these times. So I'm excited to see the recruiters who embrace this, and I really do think that scale is just the gap is going to widen essentially between the best of the best recruiters and a lot of the just any recruiter that you want to just fill any position, but you don't always know what you're going to get. So full stack recruiter, you heard it here first, Matt. So anything else that listeners should know or think about as this starts to expand in the space?
No, in full stack recruiter, that whether that term takes off or not, is debatable, and that's not the purpose of this. The purpose is to help people understand, though, that the technology's here now to do things way more quickly, right? And you shouldn't be relying, you shouldn't be specialized in labor. And the organizations that understand that, and the search firms and the independent headhunters, you're actually in a really good spot. So lean more into doing first principle, doing more of it yourself, and don't worry about scaling and profit. Let technology help you. Let it empower you, and that's really where we're at. So
I love it. Well, thank you for taking the time to come on the show and share all this. Like I already know it's inspired me. It's going to inspire other recruiters to really start incorporating this into their day to day. So, as always, Becoming a Hiring Machine is a production of Loxo. You can find the show notes in the description of your favorite podcast streaming platform, as well as on our website, loxo.co/podcast. Video versions available on YouTube if you want to watch that there. And if you have questions, you want to hear anything, Matt take his view on something, send it to us, podcast@loxo.co. So, all right, everyone, that's the show. That was a hot mic drop with Matt. Until next time.